This is Suspenders Unbuttoned, a podcast where friends talk with friends about TV, movies, and books.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Suspenders Unbuttoned podcast. My name is Sarah.
And I'm Julie, and we're excited to have director and producer Leif Bristow with us today.
Yay, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome.
Well, it's very exciting to be here.
We are very excited to meet the Queen's father. She has multiple titles at this point because Brittany is everywhere.
She's been pretty darn busy.
Yeah.
No, she's been really busy.
Yes, she has. And what's good is because with her schedule and our schedule, every once in a while we get to work with her too. So
yeah,
it makes it a lot of fun when we do.
I bet it does. Yeah.
I love that. We're excited to have you on. And I'm going to start off with one of the most basic questions in the world. You are a producer. What is a producer?
That's a really, really good question.
Right?
There's a lot of answers to that. It depends on, when you in the television world, sometimes the producer is the person that works closest with the set and producing the show, versus, in some cases where they're more financially oriented. Mm-hmm. In my particular case, and because my wife and I produce everything together, Aggie, she's a writer and a producer, and I think, more in my world, because I started as a performer in the industry. So I was a performer for a long, too long a time. And then years ago, I decided, more because I wanted to spend family time instead of being on stage, I started producing. And so from our world and more of where I work is I'm truly a creative producer. However, I just also happen to be a financial producer. So the good part is I can blend it all together and then generally executive produce the shows that we do.
So what is the difference between saying you're a producer and an executive producer? Does that change from project to project kind of thing?
It changes from television world to film world. Quite often in the film world and in the studio side of the film world, if you're in LA, quite often executive producer are people that will have some connection to financing the project, or sometimes there'll be an executive producer from the studio side where they're involved in helping to package the creative project. In television, generally speaking, the executive producer they're in charge of every element. So, for instance, there is no element on one of our films that we don't oversee from a hands-on position, from the beginning of the first word of the script to the last moment before the film is delivered, and in this case to Hallmark. So we touch every element. We oversee all of the creative elements in every aspect, whether it's wardrobe or production design, direction, casting, you name it. Every element comes under that creative producing role.
Okay, I love that. So you, it's interesting. So you were a theater guy, right?
I started as a singer, actually.
As a singer, I love that. Okay.
I started at a very young age, and I was very fortunate. And I got to sing a lot, and I performed a lot. I did a lot of musicals, and went to the University of Denver in opera originally.
Right. Okay.
And then had an opportunity. I don't know if you may recall a group that was around for a long time. They're back again, but in a slightly different format. In the 70s and 80s, a very popular group was called Up With People.
Yes.
That toured all over the world. Yep. Well, I actually toured one year with Up With People in Europe, in a special cast that was assembled in 1974. And so when I was doing that, because we performed basically everywhere from Belfast to Rome when we were in Europe, and because of what we did, it gave me a real opportunity to understand what I wanted to do and whether I wanted to stay in opera or what I wanted to do. So when I finished that, I came back, and then I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and got my degree in theater.
Okay.
And then continued to perform for a number of years. And as you mentioned, the Queen, after she was born, I really decided I wanted to be able to spend time at home with Aggie and Brittany and Vanessa, and not have my life or their life be about my performance.
Yeah.
So just decided to be a lot more fun for us to have lots of family time. So I stopped performing full time, and then got more in the world of finance and executive producing. And then when I came back into it, I took about 6 years off in finance, and then came back and started executive producing in about 1993. And I've been doing that since 1993, been producing and directing.
I love that. I kind of love that journey, because literally my first question was, kids don't say they want to be a producer when you ask them what do they want to be when they grow up. So how did you end up there? So that was like the perfect answer to that.
I'll tell you, it's funny because I was out visiting my parents yesterday, because I'll be back in Budapest on the next film and won't get to see Dad on Father's Day, but and he's 91, and we were talking about the fact that there's a lot of interesting roads that take you to where you finally end up kind of in parts of your journey. And I was fortunate. I did do a lot of stuff, and I did a lot of work in investment banking when I took time off. My family are all investment bankers. So it came by it naturally. And so I worked in that world of finance for a long time, so I could understand how to really control and kind of be the master of kind of my own journey in film and television if I was going to produce. So yeah, it was an interesting journey to get here.
I kind of love this. Sarah and I have talked about this, how really this community and that we have had on the podcast, they're really small businesses. And so you have to know all those pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I would try to explain to a lot of people is that a really well-run film set is probably more efficient than any Fortune 500 company in the world, because we don't have the choice to say, okay, well, we'll do that tomorrow.
Right.
If you're making a $500 million picture and you go, well, I don't feel like working today, well, somebody's going to pick up that day's rate. But when you're making, films in the $2 to $5 million range, and you've got 15 or 20 days to make it, if somebody says, well, yeah, you can use this venue today, well, it might not be available for you tomorrow.
Right.
So you better go and get what you have to get and get it all in that day. So it's why it's always so funny. Everybody goes, why do you have so many people on a film set? Well, because you better have everything ready, because just when you think you were ready, it starts to pour rain, and you go, well, I guess we're not filming out here in this park at the moment. We better find what our rain cover is. So your whole team better be standing by to make sure you've got something to film.
I love hearing all the pieces that got to come together to make these little, I say these little movies that we watch, but they're not little movies. They're big production. I mean, you're putting a lot of heart and time and effort into them. But I love learning the different pieces that it takes. Yeah.
There's a lot of them. They don't get made in isolation. It takes it's an awful lot of people. And what's really wonderful, and I remember years ago talking with somebody about it, and film is one of those really interesting mediums, film and television, because it's the one creative industry where everyone who touches it in any way, shape, or form gets their signature at the end, and that lives forever.
Yeah. Right.
So and when you look at the list, it takes a small army to make one of these. Right. And and everything is critical.
Mhm.
Right. I kind of love looking at the list of credits, and often how you'll see some of those same people and in some of those places we don't really know, those behind the scenes people, and
Mhm.
you'll see them come through, and you'll be like, hey, I know that name now. I've seen it so many times. I wonder who they are, what they do exactly.
Right.
But do you often use some of the same teams of people to make your movies?
We do. I mean, Aggie and I like to say we collect people.
Yeah, yeah.
And that there on some of our projects there are certain departments and people within departments based on when they're available, but there are people that are working on even the current film that worked with in the 1990s.
I love it.
And it's so there's a lot of people and depending on where we are in the world, like I would say probably 20% or 25% of the crew on the movie we just did in South Africa was involved in the crew when we did Love on Safari there 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, and they were really wonderful, and we called and they were available and they wanted to come back and work with us again. So we do that wherever we go in the world. We make a lot of international friends, and when they do a great job, you want to have them back.
Right. So we've seen some great behind the scenes from Love on Safari. Both Brittany and Andrew Walker have posted.
That's Love on Safari was the one we did with Lacey.
Yeah.
And Brittany
right.
and John Core. This one's called A Safari Romance.
I did see that. I did actually see that. Safari Romance. You're right. Love on Safari is with Lacey, right?
Yep.
But Brittany was in that one too, and she's in this one. The behind the scenes shots we've seen are amazing, but logistics for doing something to film in 1, South Africa, 2 with animals, 3 with really large animals, like just like that. As somebody who's going to produce a film, do you have to think about additional things when you're going to go do a project like that?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you do. There's like everything else. It's just the difference in logistics of what you're going to do, and when you over the years, I've done an awful lot with large animals.
Yes.
And horses and small animals and all kinds of things, but what you really have to focus on is how do we go and make that movie, keep everybody safe, keep everybody calm, and understand that it's a line in the film actually, that we are visitors in their world. Mm-hmm. And if you respect them and give them the right distance and you approach it correctly, then you can accomplish a lot. And then you just have to be open enough to go, and I want to try it.
Right. Right. To be willing to jump in with 2 feet. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, I threw a few posters together to kind of make a small poster for your thing, just really to kind of show that, like, you're not afraid of like movement. You just had the dance movie, Dance Detectives, right? You're not afraid of movement. You're not afraid of animals. Like, these are the things that everybody tells you you're not supposed to do, right? and you're not afraid of filming in locations that are not familiar to you. You're filming abroad all the time.
Yeah, I think that's kind of when we started doing this, and I was fortunate because I worked as part of a company that made 18 films for HBO prior, and those were made in places like Bratislava and Padua, Italy, and Ireland and stuff, and it was, I guess, working in the world of co-productions and understanding co-production treaties made me realize, we can go anywhere in the world to tell our stories. Mm-hmm. And it's like, we'll be filming in Hungary. Well, they've been making great movies in Europe for an awful long time. And some of the most brilliant craftspeople in the world come from all of these countries. All you have to do is trust that there are great people everywhere that come to do a great job every day. and love the creative industry. So if you trust that if you just kind of go into that world with an open mind, you'll find great people. And so then, and if you work that way, then you can go and make great product. So our kind of one of the things that we've always done, and it's why so many of our movies are international, is that it's always been our focus to take the audience to the most exotic places in the world that most people will never get to see, and try to give them visual postcards of that world so that they can enjoy the world that we see, kind of through that lens.
Yeah, I love that.
Me too. Me too. So how was I just going to phrase this? How do you pick what projects you want to be involved with and what you would like to make?
Well, generally speaking, I think my wife and I we think of ideas of what would be wonderful stories. It's like when we did Love on Safari, when I asked Liz Yost at Hallmark about it, they'd never had a safari movie. And right. It's if there's safaris are still considered almost the number one item on most people's bucket list for the dream vacation.
Right.
And yet less than 1% of the world will ever be able to go on a safari. So and we know that people love watching animals in films. So why don't we do it? And she said, yeah, let's go do it. Same as when we did Love, Romance, and Chocolate. I knew that outside of Chocolat, there'd never been an English language romance movie about the chocolate industry.
Right.
And that's kind of hard to fathom, actually.
Yeah.
And also the visuals in that one, just like really taking you down the street. Like those are some of my favorite shots of Hallmark movies. Like, it's someplace I've never been, and you really get the feel of walking down the street. So I love that, taking me someplace I haven't been.
Well, this is kind of how, when we look at movies, by the way, most of the movie scripts that have ever been submitted to us where they weren't necessarily an idea where Aggie and I said, oh, because like a safari romance, Aggie wrote it. A Tale of Love that we did last year, Aggie wrote that one. And in most all the films, we're the primary editors before we go to camera of all the movies. And it's, if it wasn't an idea that we've thought of or somebody else has brought us the script, most of those scripts were written to be shot in Hamilton, Vancouver.
Right.
And I go, well, the odds are I'll never make a movie in Vancouver because everybody else is making movies in Vancouver. So why would I go there? And it doesn't make sense to me when I've got the world of Ireland and Scotland and, we're talking about doing a movie in Istanbul and one in Cape Town. And, we've got our new project that's coming up. That'll be an awful lot of fun. It'll be something very, very different that anybody's ever seen.
I love that.
It's a big secret, but
I love something different, though.
I thought you were going to say we love secrets.
Sure.
But it's actually not that big a secret. But it's so often what we look at is, let's say somebody writes a script, and like Love Blossoms, one of the first movies we did for Hallmark, which was about the perfume industry. Well, it was never designed to be filmed in Belgium, which is and Bruges. But if great romance stories work, they should work to a worldwide audience, not just in one location. So unless you're doing a movie that's specifically about New York City or specifically about, something like that, where that city is the basis of the script, then almost any script you can take and move to a different locale and then integrate that location as one of your major characters. And that's always really critical for us, is that where we take our movies become major characters.
Yes.
In the script.
Yeah.
And I think the audience really loves that.
Wait, Sheila in the comments is like, Love Blossoms setting was stunning, right? It's like, so she remembers that. It's like people remember those visuals. I'm just going to say recently Dancing Detective was in Malta. That's certainly someplace I have never been. And those visuals were amazing. So it was fun to see the story unfold. And a couple
Thank
of
you.
like,
It's such a
very,
beautiful movie, and
right.
it was just, it was such a blast to do. And Will and Lacey were very fun and funny and charming, and again, that there's a great example of how a location can just totally transform a script, you know, and not to diss any other city, but for a North American audience, if we did that in most North American cities, it would just be another romance movie in one of those cities that they've seen a million times.
Yeah.
But to get such an exotic location with the vistas and the beauty of Malta, it made it a lot of fun. That's actually our 6th movie that we've done in Malta.
Okay, I love that, because who else is shooting 6 movies in Malta?
Know.
No one. But there you are. You know, the other fun things is just like bringing in some fun elements, the car, and you know, like it just gives that some personality, and you're to those visuals that you'll always remember, right? So
the dancing scene when they're like in the little bit of water, that
in
was
the water.
Yeah.
Just to give you an idea, we did that scene, and it was a fun project because for a lot of reasons. For me, that one, Stefan, who was director on it, Stefan got COVID right before we started shooting.
Of course, right.
So the first few days, I had to direct, and that scene we were doing on, I think, day 2. But we had 29 minutes to shoot that entire dance.
Okay.
Because we wanted to do it at sunset.
Yes.
Right.
And because of the time of year and our proximity to the equator, we had from 6:02 to 6:29.
Yep.
To do that entire dance sequence in the water. So we got out there and we rehearsed, and the cameras were all set up. And as soon as Russ Guzzi, our DOP, said the light's perfect, and we started shooting, and we just kept moving the cameras after every take, and I think it turned out just gorgeous.
Yeah, because it just added such an extra element to, you know, them practicing the dance. You'll always remember that like their feet splashing in the water and the beautiful sunset. Yeah,
and they were having so much fun.
It looked fun.
It did. It looked fun. I feel like I need to come along and be like, I'll carry all the stuff person on whatever your next project is.
we seem to have a large entourage of people that want to do that.
Come through. I can do lots of things. I got lots of skills. I can sew a little. I can.
Okay.
I got tech skills. I can social media promote. I can do scary things. I'm strong.
Well, that would be
dole out medicine too.
Give medical advice.
Great. All needed on a film set.
Perfect.
I'm just like, these just sound amazing. So that's your 6th film in Malta. So it's stunning, it's beautiful. But when you're thinking about a location, are there things that go really well or there that make you want to go back there to film again?
Well, yeah, the first film that I did there, I actually did a biblical film there at Fort Rickosley, which was built by the Knights of Malta in, I think it was 1596. And it's because of the limestone, it is just so magnificent, and that Mediterranean light coming off the limestone, it just made it a stunning place to go. So after we filmed that one, we thought, God, we've got to come back here and do another one. And then we went there and did a couple of suspense movies. One called The Red Dress. I did, which was really a lot of fun. And there was a perfect example of a film that was written to be done at like a log cabin north of Vancouver. I said, well, why don't I do it there? Let's take it to someplace like Malta.
Right.
And actually, yeah. And so that one ended up on Lifetime. But then we did To Catch a Spy there for
Okay.
Hallmark.
Yeah.
And we did Mix Up in the Mediterranean
Right.
there. And it's just, the crew's fantastic and the location's beautiful. There's certain types of films you can do there. We're looking at doing another film there next year for Hallmark that would be kind of like Romancing the Stone.
Oh, love that. Love
so
that.
it'll be a big action adventure.
Where that's super fun. They could use more of that.
Yeah, we don't get much action, right?
Well, this is about a young woman who's a chef, and she takes a job on a super yacht and goes diving. No, she drops something and she goes swimming in the Blue Lagoon. And as she dives down, she finds a Spanish doubloon. Well, everybody thought that the Knights of Malta, that there was a ship that had a lost treasure on it. But when it left in before the Great Siege in 1565, they thought the ship had sunk further out in the ocean. But she now finds a Spanish doubloon in the Blue Lagoon. So now we've got to use all of these locations around Malta from that were built by the Knights and all the clues to figure out where everything is and who's trying to get it away from them.
Yeah. There's got to be somebody. There's got to be somebody. There's got to be the guy with the burnt circle in his arm.
Exactly.
Indiana Jones, right?
Exactly.
The German guy, he's got I got half of it, but not the other half. I feel like it won't be quite that intense, but I'm all in. Let's go.
Yeah,
that sounds amazing.
Really fun.
These are things Hallmark needs. This sounds fantastic.
Well, yeah, it'll just be an awful lot of fun. Which was, that was, when we did Dancing Detective. I mean, this was one of the things that we talked a bit about, is that not to think of it as a mystery movie, but to think of it as that, for lack of a better word, that miscongeniality or kind of semi-romantic adventure.
Yeah,
there's a mystery, but if you bring in that banter and the fun and the lightness of more of an adventure style movie versus a mystery movie, then it would just give it a different lightness and a different tempo, if you will.
Yeah.
A little different tone to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
And they did a great job with it.
Right.
Yes.
Julie
and I always talk about how we love good banter. And Will and Lacey have great banter. Yeah.
It was great.
Yeah.
It was very funny.
We love banter. So if there's we are critical of banter. Like if it's bad, we're just like, oh, come on. Right?
We are.
in our little chats, we're like, oh, come on. But sometimes you'll be like, that was great banter there, right?
Well, Aubrey Day, who wrote the script, he really did a wonderful job, and he's writing a project with me now as well for what our big secret one is coming.
Yeah. Whatever the secret
everybody
is.
Must be
everybody's going to be like, what's the secret? What's coming up? What's next? How many projects in a year do you try to do?
Well, ideally, we generally like to do 3 or 4, but since August of 2020, we're now up to, I think, 13 films and a TV series for Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, plus another series. So it's been it's been really crazy. Yeah.
It's been productive.
It's been nuts. I mean, there's a couple of projects in there we did a large feature film based on a book that Agnes wrote called Dancing Through the Shadow, the true story of a woman who came of age during the Cultural Revolution. She was a prima ballerina in Beijing, and she had been sent to a labor camp. Her husband, because Madame Mao thought ballerinas didn't know what hard work was like, so she sent them all to a labor camp. And then her husband had gone to a labor camp, and she had to give her child to her mother and her grandmother while she was in the labor camp. So, and then eventually defected to Canada, and she was actually one of Brittany's teachers. I think the year Brittany graduated from the National Ballet School. And she was great and really tough. And we heard her story, and it was just such an amazing story of rising above the adversities of that time. So Aggie wrote a book called Dancing Through the Shadow, and then we made a feature film of it, which is we've just been submitting it to film festivals now. It just got accepted to its first of the film festivals just a couple of weeks ago. So
Exciting.
that one will be coming out, and then at the same time we've been working on these, and then with a partner company we've just done a 12-part series called Beyond Black Beauty,
Right,
for Amazon Freebie.
Okay. Oh, so it's going to be a freebie. So when will that? So we saw that on IMDb. When is that going to be available?
I believe Freebie's planning on launching it in September.
Okay. So Beyond Black Beauty, can we assume horses?
You can definitely assume horses.
Once again, the man who's not afraid of animals.
No. It's really funny. Like I remember when we did Sophie and Sheba with the elephant. The elephant never missed its mark.
Yeah.
And as long as you fed it, you just keep doing it.
Love that.
It was fine. And I can tell you, for the most part, it's quite often it's a lot easier with animals on set to get what you need filmed than the actors.
Yeah.
The animals don't question their lines. They just do it.
And that's our clip for.
No, it's lots of fun. Actually, what's really fun when you do films with animals and the types of films that we do is, and especially too, I mean, the actors that do a lot of Hallmark, they enjoy doing it,
right?
Because it's so you're not dealing with the same kind of egos that people talk about when they talk about the industry. You're talking about people that want to do it, and the types of films that we do with the exotic locations and sometimes with animals and everything else. It's the type of thing people really want to do. And you watch the crew when we've got like doing Safari Romance.
Yeah.
You watch the crew every day, and every day is an exciting day, and they were so grateful to come to work and just have a great fun day, because it's like, how can you not be having fun?
Yeah.
Right.
You're walking around and all of a sudden an elephant simply just comes walking through your set.
Yeah.
Well,
it's amazing, right?
You're not doing a slasher movie. You're not doing something you can't watch with your family or your kids. Right. And so it's rewarding.
Right.
Yeah, I imagine. Yep.
So we're always lucky that way.
I mean, I can't imagine being on set and you're just looking at this animal you only ever see on the television. How could you not be grateful to be there, right? Yeah.
Right.
We had one giraffe that just kept walking up to set.
Needed to see what you were doing.
Yeah, and also they would smell the craft table.
Mm-hmm. Crafty was smelling good.
Yeah, I was like, oh yes, yeah.
Right.
And the thing is, what you can't do is you can't have, when you're like some of the stuff, what you don't want to have is citrus. Like you don't want to have oranges or grapefruits around, because the elephants will smell them.
Oh.
And they'll come.
They'll just come get it. You're not stopping it
if they smell it. So you just got to be careful what you bring into the craft table.
That is interesting. They're just probably, if the elephant's going to walk over there and get it, they're going to get it, right?
Yeah, that's the one thing you learn is, because we have the nature series that we've done, Wildlife Quest, and one thing you learn out in the animal kingdom, it doesn't matter how big the herd is or how big the animals are. If elephants start to walk through, all the animals, it's like watching the sea part. They'll just divide themselves to allow a path for the elephants to walk through. Doesn't matter. Rhinos, Cape buffalo, any species. They just part the way to allow an elephant to walk through.
Yeah. Did your giraffe that come to visit all the time have a name?
No,
just the giraffe, the same one.
I mean, lots of people gave it names.
Right. In the comments, they have a suggestion for an Indiana Jones if you need one. Sheila's got a suggestion.
Oh, I can guess.
Yeah, no, it's so fun to kind of hear like how your vision or how you want to go somewhere. So where are you filming next? Where's your next adventure? I feel like your life is an adventure.
Yes.
I think that's probably a good way to look at it. And I mean, I have to say, one of the wonderful things about that and blessings that we've had is that we get through our films, we get to explore an awful lot of the world in ways that many people don't, because because of the types of locations that we also film in, because that's one of the areas I love is pushing that boundary for our locations.
Mhm.
And we've filmed in phenomenal castles where we get to see the whole inside of the castle.
Oh, yeah.
The public may get to go into this part, but
Yeah.
we actually see what it's really like. I've been lucky. I mean, we filmed in palaces and castles and buildings that haven't been open to the public, and yet they allow us to film in them. And so we get to see sides of history and cultures that a lot of people don't get to see. It's like when if you saw when we did To Catch a Spy.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently the co-cathedral in Malta, which there was a scene in there in the cathedral that we did. It's one of the most beautiful cathedrals on the planet. And apparently the only filmmaker ever given permission to film in it outside of National Geographic and the Catholic Church itself.
Wow.
And they said, and we just said, look,
Yeah.
we just said, look, it's so beautiful. And it's such an icon of Malta. We want the world to understand what a beautiful treasure is here. And so the bishop finally said, okay. And I said, and he said, how much time do you need? And I said, if you can give me 2 hours, I can film what I need. And so they said, okay. And we had to limit the crew, and we put tennis balls on everything. And we walked in and said, okay, we're going to put one camera there, one camera here, one light stand there, one light stand over there. And here's what we're going to shoot. And that's it. And in 2 hours, we came in and we filmed like one of the most beautiful scenes in the whole movie. But we also got to see, like that inside there. They took us into one of the galleries that's being rebuilt. And it's the only place in the world where there's 2 Caravaggios. And one of the Caravaggios he signed in blood.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah. And it's where, if you go downstairs to the crypt downstairs, it's where Jean Valette, the head of the Knights of Malta, at the time, it's his tomb. And it's just, it's really phenomenal. But if you go back and you look at the movie and you notice the floor, the crypts of all the knights are on the floor. And it's just,
wow.
There's over 80,000 ounces of gold just on the walls in that church.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy, actually.
Yeah. And all of the little prayer chapels in the cathedral, each knight was responsible for paying for one of those chapels.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's really so interesting.
No.
I love the history pieces that go along with the movies. So I love when there's like deeper stories being told, when the history goes along with the movie that you're shooting, or you get a little something, then you can read a little more, right?
You'll find that in almost all of our movies.
I love that.
We always try to find an element of truth and bring that truth to the story. Right. Just because we feel it, even with the romance movies, it creates a greater depth to the story for the characters, and it helps the writers, just build a bigger truth. Like when we did Love, Romance, and Chocolate, well, the where we filmed at Van Dender's, well, Herman Van Dender actually is the palace chocolatier.
Right. That's fun.
And some of the characters in that movie were based on people that we knew or that I had known in Belgium.
I love that.
And when, like, in Love on Safari, most all the characters in Love on Safari were not necessarily based on people, but all of those characters, in fact, or most of those types of characters, we had encountered during the period of doing our nature shows.
Oh.
So we wrote based on all those experiences.
Yeah. It really makes it feel authentic.
Yeah. You know, when like with a lot of the movies that we do, if you go on Google and you type in something, you'll actually find that there are stories about almost anything you can imagine where it's been part of somebody's true life.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
So
Okay.
if we do that and you go, okay, well, here's a real case where something like this happened. Now, how do we kind of infuse the story with that truth?
So for me as a viewer, I appreciate that additional depth when you are adding in all those things, whether it's a literature reference, historical thing, the visual pieces, like you're in a chapel, you're in a church, you're at a iconic place, a fountain, statue. I love the history that brings you to that moment too.
Yeah.
I appreciate that when I'm watching that you add those in. I know other people just want to see the pretty views, but you would pick up more viewers that way when you're doing all the things, right?
We like to think so. I mean,
Yeah.
and our goal is we just really want to make them as beautiful and as memorable as we can.
Yeah.
You know, so
Love it.
We have something that we like to ask, like a lot of times actors or whatever, when they're coming on, is there an Easter egg or something we should look for in a movie? So I'm going to ask it backwards. When we go back to watch Dancing Detective, is there something in particular there that you would be like, you should look for this?
That's a good question.
Or just even like this scene was actually shot there, or this is about this item, or anything like that.
Well, what I can tell you, I mean, if you look at a couple of the places, because it's such a location centric place. So when they first go into the hotel that they're going to stay at, the Iniala Harbor House. Well, that is such a beautiful little boutique hotel in Malta. It's where Ridley Scott and what's his name? Gladiator.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
What's his name?
See?
Catherine.
Catherine.
This is easy. Like, it's the Gladiator. Like, what is his name? We're waiting for Catherine to Google it. Really.
Yeah.
We're Mel Gibson. Yeah, duh.
No, not Mel Gibson.
No.
I'm sorry, it's just easier. Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
Thank you.
It's like all of a sudden they had a brain. Okay, well, the suite that we filmed in, that's Russell Crowe's suite.
No way. That's so cool. So now, like, that's perfect. So we go back to watch.
And when they did the very first dance piece in the ballroom, that building, when the whole group was doing the first round of dancing, the building that they did it in with all the arch ceilings, that's called the Mediterranean Convention Center. It is actually one of the original hospitals built by the Knights of Malta. It's the Knights of Malta and the Hospitaliers that created the hospital systems that we use today.
Right.
And so that was actually the hospital. And
no way, that's super cool.
Now there's no longer the hospital. That room can seat 990 people for dinner, with people sitting on just in one line, with people sitting on either side of a table.
Wow. No way. That's super.
445 people on each side down one hallway.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So that was the Mediterranean Convention Center. And then the final scene was at Fort Manuel, which was also one of the forts for the Knights to guard the harbor of Valletta. So, and it's just, I mean, the whole place is just filled with these incredible foods. And I'm just trying to think of where else, what couple of the other places that were there. And of course, the pool where they did the dancing was at the Phoenicia, which is where we did, we basically made the back gardens and the pool the back of the Indianola Harbor Hotel.
Okay.
And back to the Phoenicia where we filmed Mix Up in the Mediterranean.
Okay. Oh, fun.
Okay.
So,
Fun. Okay, I love that. Love that. These are fun. These are going to be great. Go back to watch and
I know.
look at these things. I totally need to look at that conference center.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing if you look up, information on the hotels or the hospitals built by the Knights.
Yeah.
We might have a soft spot for hospitals.
I do. So that's super cool. No, but this is the stuff we love.
Yeah.
Right.
No, so everybody go back and rewatch it because we will have another podcast coming up soon about this movie.
Right.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, yeah. And there's a lot of just interesting spots in there to look at and watch.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. It's beautifully shot. That's I'm like, this is good stuff. Okay, so now when you produce the movie versus you produce a series, like, is that really different? And what you got to do?
When you're producing a series, it's just much more intense. Some people go, oh God, I'd love to work on a TV series because it's just, they look at it as being, oh, it's stable work. And it's like, it's so much longer and they work from a space. I would say it's just the same. It's just a different level of intensity, because you're delivering, you're doing, it's not that you're doing the same thing. I mean, you're continuing characters and you're doing a lot of stuff, and it has its own pressure to maintain the quality of where you're starting from and to try to continue that thread.
Right.
So it's hard in that regard. When you're doing these, the challenge is that you're doing them in, you basically have 3 weeks prep, 3 weeks shoot, 7 weeks post. For movies that normally you would make them over you'd normally have, say, 5 months, 2 months, then another couple of months. So you'd make them over about a 9-month period instead of 3 months, 4 months.
Right.
So the intensity, it's intense because you're delivering what I consider a very high standard that most people who work in our industry don't quite understand until they've done it.
Right.
And I don't mean this in a negative way. The demands of Hallmark and the Hallmark audience is they've come to expect a certain quality and a certain level and a certain amount of production value. We always like to try to exceed that wherever possible.
Right.
And so when we travel, the one thing that people go is, oh, it's just a small romance movie. Well, yeah, that'll last you about 15 minutes because, there's nothing small about it.
Right.
No. And we love seeing that, those pieces coming together and in a different way. And we do see it on screen, the attention to detail. We will actually talk amongst ourselves and say, like, we really love like how the lines were delivered, but also how it was shot and the visuals and all those different things. And do you think this meant something? Like, I love hearing about the history thing. So we appreciate that. I could see how in a series though, you have to add in that continuity piece too. And
Yeah. It's just a different.
Okay.
So I want to know, when you are say we're talking about The Dancing Detective and you're producing this film, but you're not directing it. Is it hard for you to step away from the director role, or?
No. No. If I have somebody else directing, then I try to let them direct, and I'm with the directors, most of the directors that work with us, we work very collaboratively anyway, because they all know the level and the quality that we strive to put on screen. So pretty much all of them rely on me heavily for certain aspects anyway, because they know that I will push the locations, because I really drive that location scouting.
Yeah.
Because I won't agree to something. If it isn't what I visualized, I won't agree.
I was just going to say, this is, after talking to you, I'm like, this is how we're going to tell your projects from other people's projects. It's the locations. You want to show, you want to tell part of the story with the locations.
Yeah. And then the other thing that we do is, because of the way these are shot, you'll notice in, like, whether it's, Jolly Good Christmas or well, with Dancing Detective, because Stefan had COVID, I ended up directing about a third of the movie. But also in all of our movies, you'll see, whether it's Mariah's Lighthouse or Dancing Detective, or so many of these movies, I do a lot of extra drone work and B unit work. So for instance, like you talked about Love, Romance, and Chocolate. Well, I went out with a separate camera person and filmed all of the chocolate stuff, because I wanted to make people feel like they could taste the chocolate.
Yes.
Right.
And see the canals and see the different. So we knowing that on a lot of these shoots done in 15 days, the directors don't have time to get all of that extra footage that are the transitions and the beauty that would make it more like a feature film. And that's our approach, is that these are all slightly lower budget feature films, that we still have to bring that feature film aspect to the audience, not do a TV movie. So, it's like when we did Jolly Good Christmas, for instance, a year ago, one of the things that we did was we did something really a lot of fun, actually. Because London is, like in New York City, is a really hard place to shoot. So you're dealing with sometimes 5, 6, 7, even 8 different jurisdictions that have to approve you filming in a particular spot. And a place like Covent Garden is almost impossible. So, and to film around London, just to get permits to put anything down on the sidewalk is almost impossible. So had this idea, well, the double-decker tour buses can go anywhere they want. So what happens if we put all of our film equipment on the double-decker bus and drive all around London to every iconic location in London with all of its Christmas decorations up and film from the bus? We don't have to pay anybody, and we don't have to ask permission. We just rent the bus. So that's what we did in Jolly Good Christmas. That's why every iconic location in London that had Christmas decorations is in our movie.
I love that creative workaround. It's like those types of ideas. That's what sets you apart, though. Like, you have better footage than you don't have stock footage for the transition. There's
nothing that we like less than stock footage.
We're like, we've seen that opening 400 times.
Drives me nuts. Like in that one, I had, because it was out doing drone footage, and had the only drone company that's permitted to fly in the UK, the only drone company where the pilot's permitted to fly through Tower Bridge. So you'll see that there's one drone shot in the movie where the drone flies right through the center of Tower Bridge.
Love that.
And it's so we just do extra things like that. And so when I'm not the director, I'm still very involved in helping them make sure that they've got the locations that will make them feel great about what they're directing. And we push hard on casting. Aggie and I are really involved in wardrobe, because and it's kind of fun when the TCAs were going on, and going to some of the party, a lot of the in particular the actresses from Hallmark could go, can we be in one of your movies, because the wardrobe is always so good.
Right.
So we really try to protect each of those creative visuals that the audience is going to see.
Yeah.
No, it's super fun. Yeah, even in the behind the scenes for the upcoming Safari movie.
Yeah.
Is there do you have a date or any idea when that will air?
I believe it's August 12th.
Okay,
great.
So soon.
Yeah.
That's exciting. Andrew put up some great behind the scenes footage, but Brittany has the best safari outfit on ever. I'm like, she looks amazing. I'm like, I need one of those. I need to look that good. Okay, I'm never gonna look that good because she's.
And what was great was she also, in 2 hours, really pretty much mastered driving the Safari range vehicle, which is right hand drive, left hand stick.
Yep.
And it's one of those, massive transmission things, that people aren't used to doing. So so she was driving around through.
Go girl.
Yeah.
She's one of our favorite. Where Sarah said the first time we met her, she's like, "Oh my gosh, she's a real life Barbie doll." She's.
I think I told Dustin that. Yeah.
You did tell Dustin that. He walked up and goes, "Oh my gosh, she's a real life Barbie doll." But she looks so good at the wardrobe for that one. I was like, already, I'm like, okay, looks great. Plus, it's Safari, and we're excited. I'm excited for that. The footage looks amazing, and
it really is. I mean, we're just finishing the cut now, and it's really pretty spectacular. And when you see the white lion cubs, and
that's gonna be fun.
So let's ask the Easter egg question for this one too. So we'll look for the white. What did you say, lion or tiger?
White lions. There's no tigers in Africa.
No, that would be.
Well, I didn't know what I heard.
Yeah, no, it's white lion cubs, and then there's also just this incredible white lion in it. And you can try to see if you can count how many giraffes there are. There's a lot of them. A lot of giraffes.
See if we can identify the giraffe that just came around all the time.
Yeah, it was pretty funny.
Okay, so that's our Easter egg. We're looking for the white lion and the white lion cubs. That's that
and the baby giraffe. There's a baby giraffe that's really adorable.
Oh, not going for the cuteness quotient, are you?
No.
No.
And but then there's also a baby elephant. And
geez.
There's
oh my gosh.
There's a few cute factors for sure.
I love that.
As Brittany and Andrew are going, okay, well, it doesn't matter what we say here. The audience is going to be watching the animal anyway.
100%. Nobody's going to be looking at us.
Yeah, if you're going to get upstage, you may as well get upstage by something really cool.
Yeah.
Yep. Those are really cool choices. And it's so hard to upstage Brittany and Andrew. Let's be honest. So, but that's.
And they're wonderful together in it, by the way. I mean, because they're also really good friends.
Yeah.
So, they've known each other for a long time and they've always wanted to try to work together. And they really, really did a great job together. So,
and both of them are so engaging as people,
right. And just very genuine.
Yeah.
Because we're like, this is our group chat. This is going to be so good because those two are just so engaging and so,
and our actors from South Africa as well. I mean, some really beautiful performances.
Love that. So you used actors from South Africa. That's.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
Wherever we go, we principally, our 1 and 2 kind of come from wherever, but otherwise we try to cast everything locally.
I love that.
I'm sure they love you coming back too, so they can keep getting these roles. Do you have time to play a quick little game with us?
Okay.
All right.
It's not really a game. It's just we ask your favorites. But I'm gonna start with outside of what we normally ask, just because just because you have this great background. What is your favorite location you've ever filmed in or worked in?
Oh, that's so hard.
I know. You can give a few.
Okay, so I love South Africa, not just because of the animals and everything else. I always tell everybody that comes with us on a shoot that gets to come to South Africa, it will change their life. I think it is. I think you can, next time you talk to Lacey, you can ask her what South Africa did for her.
The next time we talk to Lacey, she's on our list of people. It's a goal. She's a goal.
And when you talk to Andrew, ask him what the effect was.
Yeah.
It's just
because he had never been.
He had been to Cape Town once before.
Okay.
But this was different.
That's different.
And the kindness and the warmth of the people of South Africa is just so unique to experience, and especially knowing, what, like, for them coming out of apartheid is recent history,
right?
But to see this real beauty of a country working to build a better country together. Not trying to figure out how to tear each other down, who was right or who was wrong, but saying, okay, that was then, we've forgiven. How do we move forward together? And so it's just, I don't know. It's just, I can never not go back there.
Right. Love that.
It's, Iceland is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Malta is obviously a really amazing, unbelievable place to film because the people are incredible. There's a unique beauty. When we were filming there, Dancing Detective, I took Lacey and Will to the Hypogeum, which is these are burial temples that were built over 5,000 years ago. The oldest freestanding structures on the planet are on Malta.
Wow.
I love that.
And these are
this is the stuff I love.
So we always take a day off and do excursions,
right?
So that everybody can get a sense of where they've just come to, not just come make a movie. So and filming in Padua, Italy. One time I got to film in the very first anatomy studio that the first anatomy class was ever taught in. I was only the second filmmaker in history to film in it.
Amazing.
There was a photo done for the Olympics for Italy that was done inside. It's called the O, but it's the original anatomy studio. It's in Padua, and it's the room where Galileo conducted and taught anatomy. And it's this wooden structure, and it's an oval, and the doors would only be, say, about maybe 5 feet high, about this wide, and you would duck and you'd step in, and it was just a tiered classroom, and you just everybody just moved around, and you stood, and you had a lectern in front of you. And what was really interesting about it was that at the floor where the class was taught, there was a stream that ran under the University of Padua, and so the anatomy class was there. So they had the anatomy table, and they always had a goat tied to the table, because at the time, you couldn't. It was because you're against the church. You couldn't do anything to a human body.
Right.
Body. Right. So if you think about it, so if you were in the very first anatomy class, you were also sworn to secrecy. You couldn't go and tell your family that you were studying anatomy, because your family might turn you into the church, and be killed.
Which had policing power, political power, and religious power.
And so when what they would do is, at the top of the university, and the guards at the university didn't know, but they always had the university guards, and so they would be watching for emissaries from the church or from the Medici family approaching the university, and then they would ring a bell so that everybody knew that either the church or the royals were coming. And so if they heard that bell and an anatomy class was going on, they would dump the body in the stream and slaughter the goat.
No way.
So yeah,
Fascinating.
and so standing in that, the first time when they said we could film there, and standing there, because we did a film on Da Vinci
Yeah.
we did one on Da Vinci and one on Galileo for HBO years ago, and standing in that knowing that was the very first place that an anatomy class had been taught was just so powerful.
Yeah.
And trying to envision and just think of what it would have been like to be there then.
Everything about it, like how it would feel and how it would look and how it would smell and all the things, right? No, like
yeah.
Right.
So when you say, what are favorite places, it's hard because
Right.
the one thing about our world is there's so many magnificent places, and where the one thing that I think I learned from traveling a lot is I traveled a lot as a kid just because of living in different cities when I was growing up, and then having the opportunity to sing in Europe and what I got to experience is that what I realized is that no matter where you travel in the world, we're all so much more similar than we are different, with the exception of a few countries. And that is that wherever you go, people like to laugh and have fun and have joy and have music, and families get together and they have big meals, and no matter where you go in the world, you'll never find anybody that really wants to be in a war, and no parent wants to see their child lose their life ahead of them or more, and they all want to create a world that can make it better for their children. So when you see that and you get to experience it, you get to experience the world, to me, in a much different way, and you realize that whether you're seeing some of the most beautiful and treasured places in a place like Hungary, or you get the opportunity to tour parts of the Vatican or the Colosseum in a way that many tourists don't get to, or the same thing in Ireland, and so many of these places, you just get to see a beauty of the history of our world and the people around it that makes it's hard to say this is my favorite place.
Yeah.
I love though that some of the things you're highlighting, and I love that you appreciate like what they meant in history or in their time and their space, like that. I love that. That's it makes things more meaningful when you're there.
And the thing is, we have those same things in North America too.
For sure.
Like, when you go to Charleston, or I mean, my cousin used to. I used to get down to Minneapolis quite a bit because of my cousins that had their insurance company there. You go into the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
You find these elements of beauty because of the people and their pride in certain areas of their culture and what they've established in each of those places, whether you're in Chicago or, I always thought of myself as, I don't know, as a New Englander, even though, I'm from Toronto, but, I always figured, I probably, if I lived in the US, well, part of my family was from St. Joseph, Missouri, and things like that too. But I always felt somewhat like a kindred spirit to being in Rhode Island and Boston and stuff like that. So it just, but the history and the things that we find about our cultures and just the different places on the planet make each of them special in a different way.
Yeah. And I think it's so easy to forget that, like forget the bigger picture of where you live or what else is a part of your country or, our world. It's so easy to get caught up in these little
it's like Aggie's from Newfoundland. And if you ever want to see one of the most beautiful places on the planet and go on a vacation, go to Newfoundland. It's like going back 400 years. You will never meet nicer people on the planet than in Newfoundland. And the rugged beauty of it is so majestic. And it's extremely awe-inspiring.
Yeah.
Have you ever filmed there?
Right here.
Yeah. Have you ever filmed there? I know that there was like a movie recently filmed there.
I haven't filmed there yet.
I love the yet.
I mean, we have one that we would like to do there. We had talked about doing Mariah's Lighthouse there.
Oh yeah.
There's another perfect example when Liz and I talked about Mariah's Lighthouse originally. It was going to get filmed in northern Ontario, near North Bay, because Mariah's Lighthouse is actually on an island called Manitoulin Island, which is about 4 hours from Toronto. So when I was talking to Liz, I said, well, I can go film it there, or I can go film it in Newfoundland, which would then be really gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
But if we film it on Manitoulin Island, where it was written for, it's just going to look like a fishing lodge in upstate Michigan or outside of Vancouver.
Right.
And it's going to look the same as all the other movies you did, where somebody goes up to a lodge in BC. I said, but wouldn't it be interesting to use a lighthouse on the coast of France where you've never had a film?
Yeah.
And she went, when can we do it?
Yeah.
I said, well, we could film it in June. She said, can I have it on the air in June? I said, but it's February. She said, I know. So we finished Jolly Good Christmas, and 2 days later, Aggie and I drove 3,100 kilometers over 4 days, driving around the coast from all of Normandy and Brittany, France, looking for the lighthouse. And we chose the very first one that we saw was the one that we ended up filming at.
But I bet that was an amazing driving trip, though. Even so.
Yes. Yeah. So. No.
I love it. I say we just do one last one, and I feel like the most appropriate one is we need to know, what is your favorite musical?
My favorite musical.
Yeah, you can't do a favorite of the one of those either, can you?
Well, I would have a historical favorite,
okay,
and a modern favorite.
All right, give us both.
Historically, of the old time musicals, I like Carousel.
Yeah, right. Because iconic.
Yeah, well, and I love. I mean, Camelot was a lot of fun too. But doing Lancelot or doing Billy Bigelow. I mean, those were characters I loved doing.
Right.
I love the character of Billy in Carousel.
Yeah.
I've done most of them. I did Sound of Music. I did Little Night Music. I've done most of them, but there was just something about the character of Billy Bigelow that I really liked. And in the modern ones, it would have to be Valjean in Moonrise. Because I think it's
look down.
Yeah. I just think that's. I mean, and when if you think going forward in 100 years, probably shows like Les Mis and Phantom will be part of the opera selections of the opera companies in 100 years, because they're the modern day opera as to what was written 200 years ago.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. No. Great answers. Love that. Love both of those.
Love it. Well, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was really fun. I feel like we could keep talking and talking.
I know. I'm like, I could probably keep asking you questions.
So you'll need to come back again.
We can do it again. We can do it again sometime.
Yes.
I'm like, what was on my sheet even? Because I just kept asking.
We can do it after we finish filming Love on the Right Course.
Fine.
Which was partially written by the Queen.
Partially written by the Queen
and her king, right?
And her king.
Yep.
Which was also a lot of fun because she put some of that process on Instagram. So it was kind of fun to see, they were writing it in a certain amount of days and all that. So yeah, exciting. We're happy. We're excited for that project. So yes, please come back.
Absolutely.
Right.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then you can actually follow Leif on Instagram. He's on Instagram.
Yeah, usually I'm on set and
I was gonna say it doesn't post a lot there.
It's like I just go, okay. I don't post a ton, but I post every once in a while.
Every now and then.
I always try to post from sets wherever we are sometimes.
Yeah, we love that.
In all your free time.
In all your free time.
But hang on 1 second. We'll end the broadcast and say goodbye. off the air. But thank you everybody for joining us tonight, and thank you, Leif, for being here. It was a lot of fun.
It's really a pleasure.
Good night.
Bye, everyone.